Let's see if we're live. And let me also check and make sure that, yep, audio looks like it's working. Okay, and okay. It's Friday afternoon streaming on Sunday because my original Friday stream did not have audio. So we're going to go ahead and go over a few of the things that I said there. It was only about 10 minutes long as it was. But I do have a few things that I'm going to say about upcoming content on the channel. And also want to say thank you to the now 5,000 plus subscribers to the channel. I really do appreciate all of you coming by here to watch the stuff that I create. And so why don't we go ahead and talk about the stuff that I'm going to be creating coming up. So for a while now, I've been planning on doing a Point Pleasant lore video, a remake of my original one made back in 2018 or really early 2019. No, it was really late 2019, I think, because I started really making lore videos in September of 2019. Anyway, so I made the original video, but the quality of it's not amazing. I've got a really crappy mic in that original one, and it's also just not up to the current standard of how I make these videos. So I'm going to go back through it, and I'm remaking it. Doing it with better historical sources and stuff like that, and also making sure that I don't speculate too much on the standard part of the video where I'm talking about the actual story of what happened here in the Fallout universe. Because I definitely, in that one, talked about how the responders blockaded the bridge across the Ohio and blew it up to prevent the Scorched from getting across it. Now, I'd like to believe that that's the case, but there's no actual notes or anything like that that says that that was the case. So it's entirely possible that they did. Hey, Goodman, good to see you. But again, unless I have actual specific evidence that that's the case, I'm not going to list that in the main narrative. Now, I will list that as a note that it makes sense to me that the responders thinking about the people outside of West Virginia would blow this thing up in order to keep the Scorched from spreading. But it's not something, again, that's going to be in the main narrative. The other things I'm going to note are changes that have taken place to Point Pleasant since I made the original video. Obviously, the city has now become something of a holy city for the Mothman cult. So I'm going to also, that's the other point, the next video following this one was originally going to be the Mothman cult in Fallout 76. Basically talking about their origins before the war, how they've grown since the war, the fact that since 2103 they've effectively turned Point Pleasant into their holy city. Now, the problem is, hey, Night Spearhead, good to see you. The problem is that I need to do more of the dailies here. We'll get to that in 1 second. One of the other changes I want to show you while we're over here is if we come over here to the river. This is the Silver Bridge, by the way, or the replica of the Silver Bridge that's been rebuilt in the Fallout universe. The original Silver Bridge in the real world was a suspension bridge that collapsed into the Ohio. Right around Christmas time, there were a bunch of cars on the bridge, cold weather, all that. I think it probably the cold didn't help. Probably caused the metal to be more brittle. I don't know that to be a fact, but regardless, it happened right around Christmas time. If you've seen the movie, the Mothman Prophecies, that movie, it's a fictionalized depiction of the bridge collapse takes place in that. So if you look down in here, there used to be a Christmas tree that was on the floor of the river, and I've even got it in my video the first time around, but it's not here anymore. So I don't know why they took it out. I don't know if they maybe thought that it was in bad taste or something like that. I don't know why anyone would think that. And again, I also could have been the case that I filmed the original footage around Christmas time, and it could be simply that it's something that's seasonal and doesn't show up all of the year. So I don't know. But regardless, the main reason that I'm not going to be immediately doing Point Pleasant, because I want to do it in an immediate order of Point Pleasant immediately followed by the Mothman cult, because there's not that much story in Point Pleasant, but there's a lot of story to the Mothman cult. And so I basically want to be able to say, we are done here, so why don't you go ahead and go watch the Mothman cult video. But again, I'm not going to be able to make the Mothman cult video because I need to do more of the dailies, and the reason specifically that that's the case is if we come in here into the church, let me just take care of these guys real quick. There are sacred tomes here that surround the altar. Now, if we look in here, there are 3 here. And there are 3 more in here. So you got the first 4 I've been able to read. Up to this one right here. Observations volume, what is that? 27 annotations by Interpreter Walsh. That one's a pretty funny one. But that being said, I cannot read these last two because you have to do the dailies here like 25 times total to be able to read all 5 or all 6 of the books, I mean, and I just haven't done that. Now, the problem is that the only time those dailies are available is during the Mothman Equinox event, and there is not one of those currently on the schedule for July, at least the last time I checked. Now, if they do update, I mean, if we get some of those in August, I'll be able to come back here, do the dailies, record the footage showing the contents of those sacred tomes. But until that time, I can't cover the Mothman cult, not fully at least. Part of covering the Mothman cult is also going to be covering the contents of Lucky Mine. I've covered Lucky Mine before, specifically in a Surveil video, but it's the site where you can find... I don't even know. See, that's the thing, is I need to do more research on this stuff. It's something called like the Interloper or something. It's like an eldritch horror sort of a thing where it's this weird creature that's like half stuck in the ground, half stuck out. We can go over there real quick and we can take a look at it if you haven't seen it yet. But again, the main point of this whole video here is saying that the next videos are not going to be covering Point Pleasant and the Mothman cult. I've been doing research on the real world Point Pleasant for the past couple of weeks, so I've actually got some pretty good stuff on there. It's a lot of the same stuff from last time, but with better sourcing and stuff like that. And along with that, there's some expansion on what I covered last time when it came to where is it? There it is, Lucky Hole Mine. Yeah, it bleeds. So what I'm going to end up doing next is, instead of covering, this is the picture that I took and enhanced in order to make the thumbnail for the Responders video, by the way. But anyway, I can't remember. Okay, so I either took that one specifically and used it, or I found a clear image of it online, because somehow some people have access to these images from the game that I don't even know where they are. Like, somebody online has a picture of Secretary Eckhart. I don't know where they found it. I haven't seen it anywhere in the game. Same thing with, they've got a picture of Senator Sam Blackwell. Again, it looks canon, but I have no idea where they found it because I haven't been able to find it in the game. And it's something that I want to be able to use in videos, but unless I know it's actually the canonical version of these things, and again, that picture is canonically in the game. Yeah, data miners are crazy. I want to be able to show things that, like the picture of Sam Blackwell and Senator Eckhart, but unless I know they're canonical, I cannot. Whereas that version of the Responders picture that I found online that was higher definition, I was able to use that because I found the in-game version of it on that desktop. Alright. Why sneak here? Okay, let's see. So, again, in covering the Mothman cult, I'm also going to be talking about the Interloper here, because it's something that they actually do reference in those sacred tomes up in the church in Point Pleasant. Okay. It's actually been a while since I've been in Lucky Hole Mine. Let's see. Is it back here? No. Let's see. I covered it right before Wastelanders because I knew that a change was coming to it. But at some point I will have to make an updated Surveil video of this location as well. I did miss making a Surveil video on the Middle Mountain Cabins. I think I did, at least. Missed making one of those. I went there, though, at least in a couple of videos. I think specifically in the run-up to the Brotherhood of Steel, returning to Appalachia, because there's a large quantity of wood there, or there, at the very least there used to be a large quantity of wood there. And so for Wood Week, I visited Middle Mountain Cabins. I'm sure that I filmed it. I don't know if I used it in the video or not. So I will have some footage of the location before the return. Well, not the return, but the Blue Ridge Caravan ended up making their new camp there. Let's see. The problem with this stuff is, like, I did the Surveil video, which means I investigated this place 5 times, but I mean, the Wastelanders update came out a while back, so it has been some time. Ouch, back at the entrance. Since I really knew this place like the back of my hand. I can definitely still say that I know the pit like the back of my hand after investigating that place earlier this year. But, yeah, Lucky Hole is going to take me a minute to remember. Yeah, Lucky Hole is a good location for lead. I do remember that. But anyway, the next video I'm going to do is instead going to be covering Vault 95. I think that's the number. There's the lead. In Fallout 4. And the reason for that, do I have the code to this? I don't remember if I have the code to that. I think it's written down somewhere. Ugh, cave crickets. When you're not cheating, as I'm effectively doing right now with with my Fallout world, cave crickets are such a pain in the ass. But anyway, so the main reason I want to cover Vault 95 is because I want to cover the Gunners in Fallout 4. And given that that's one of the Gunner locations, I want to have that video done and locked down with all the lore of that location understood before I go on to making the main video. Let's see, is this Chapter 7? It's not going to be in there. Man, I do not remember. I think that the interloper is behind that gate. Let's see. Let me look the code up real quick, because I do not remember where it is or how to get it. So, let's see. Of course, you look something up and someone's got to give you their life story. It's not as bad as when you're looking up a recipe and someone's got to tell you about how they discovered cherries were a thing for the first time. There we go. No. Just a bunch of stock in there. Yeah, I really enjoy making the vault. There it is. That's how you find it. I remember now. It's behind this bush. It's hidden. Okay. Wait, is it? No, that's the altar. Could have sworn it was right in here. Am I misremembering it? I must be misremembering it. Either that or things have changed since the last time I really came here looking for... Oh, is that it? No, that's just the base of that. Syringe plus buff out equals fun. Let's see, Cultist Redemption. I'm sure that's something that's going to come up. Is there more in here that I'm missing? Okay, well, I'm going to have to find it again. The other location, wait, is it back here? Yes. There you go. Another screen of vines. God. It has been a long time. Okay. There he is. There's the interloper. Creepy as all get out. It's moving. And it bleeds. And it's got these creepy faces all around it. And now the cultists have found it. So yeah, this is definitely something that's going to feature. So. I really need to read Lovecraft stuff so I have a better grasp of if this is a specific reference to anything in particular that he wrote. It's creepy, and I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's got some subtle music going on here. So, why don't we also go to, I think, yes, good thing this is Fallout 76 because I can fast travel, so let's go to the Deep, because there's something else there as well. But again, my main goal in covering Fallout 4 stuff is moving up to covering the Gunners, which means I need to be covering all their locations other than Gunner Plaza, the old GNR station. So that's going to be a spot that's specifically covered in the Gunners video. But if there's any other spots, I will cover them. Epic Nate did a long form video on the Eldritch Horrors. Okay, let's see here. I generally don't watch Fallout lore content from other creators, specifically because I don't want to, at least until I've covered it myself, because I don't want to end up coloring my view of the stuff. The content, I mean, I don't want to basically come to it and regurgitate somebody else's opinion on it, or have their opinion make me miss something that they may have missed in the first place, you know? Now, I can't do that for things like Oxhorn, which I watched his stuff before I started making my own videos back in the day. Let's see. Okay, what do we have in here? Okay. Yeah, there's the President's eyes only in the diver suit there. Okay, let's see. The Deep is such an interesting location, and I feel like it has not gotten enough... It has not made enough of an appearance yet in Fallout 76. We only come here for one quest line, and that's only if you side with the settlers of Foundation. And, of course, you can come here while basically doing both sides of that quest line to a point. But, like, this is such a crazy, crazy area. And here we go. This is the other thing. Also bleeds. Yeah, the Deep is a really interesting location. And I also just love the fact that there's this Chinese base down here right beneath the White Spring. This thing is creepy. And it's giving off this weird effervescence. So yeah, again, as soon as they release the... not release. As soon as Mothman Equinox appears again on the calendar, I'll mark that down for myself. I will do that daily as many times as I need to in order to access all the sacred tomes. At that point, I should be able to actually put the lore video together. Now, I will spend some more time in between now and then also investigating things like the Interloper, whatever the heck that thing is back here in the deeps. And hopefully that'll make it so that once I cover the Mothman Equinox and I get the specific lore from those two final sacred tomes, I can put together a video for y'all on the Mothman cult. Seriously, this is such an awesome location. But again, until then, I'm postponing the Point Pleasant lore video. I'm still going to make sure I have the real world stuff done before I move on from that. But I'm not going to cover that video until I can basically be like, okay, so that section on the Fallout history of Point Pleasant was like 2 minutes long. Well, go ahead and you can go watch the Mothman cult video, which features Point Pleasant in it and is a lot more extensive. So, if you all have any questions, I'll answer those. If you have any recommendations, suggestions, things like that, let me know right now. I'll spend the next couple minutes walking around here taking a look at stuff. I always wonder exactly what it is that's down there. If that's just like a sea of ultracite. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I a couple of days ago. In fact, the specific boost that got me up over 5K that was that somebody mentioned my content on Reddit, and so I suddenly got this boost of like 100 subs from that, and then along with that, and a couple of days later, somebody asked like, "Oh, what Fallout lore videos do you watch?" And so again, I got another boost in subs, and it wasn't specifically related to a video launch, which I always understand that. Like when I launch a video and then I come back a couple hours later and see that I've got 15 new subs, I get it. But when I hadn't released a video and then for like 6 days, and then suddenly there was a boost of 100 subs, I was like, what's going on here? So I investigated Reddit and found that somebody had made a post specifically mentioning my content. So I really do appreciate that. And yeah, let's see. So I don't know about whether or not the supernatural elements played a role in the Great War. I need to investigate, and so this obviously isn't specifically supernatural, but more so sci-fi stuff. But again, it's stuff that exists in the Fallout universe. I really need to investigate Mothership Zeta again before too long, because I remember finding some piece of lore there that made me think that the aliens were specifically responsible for the actual launching of the nuclear war in the first place. Basically taking control of the people behind the launch stations and causing the launches to take place. Whether or not I'm remembering that correctly or not, I need to investigate it. So don't take my word for it there at all, because it's been probably almost a decade now since the last time I spent really any time in Mothership Zeta. So I really want to make sure I cover that stuff before I talk about it any further. But because, I mean, that's a big thing. If they were specifically responsible for making the war take place, that's a huge, that's a huge thing. But yeah, I'm going to definitely not talk about that. I don't have any theories on whether or not the supernatural elements of the game had any cause or effect on the Great War. Because, I mean, there's definitely some stuff where it seems like the supernatural elements were aware that the Great War was about to take place. I mean, if you're in Point Pleasant and you go to the old basement of the Mothman Museum, there is a bit there about how they were expecting a great flood to take place, and then the Great War took place the next day. So there's definitely something where the supernatural elements were aware that the world was about to end. Whether or not they had any actual effect in causing it, I don't know that that's the case. I had a pretty good week. Happy birthday to you, Goodman. Hope it was a good week for you. It's been really freaking hot. I live in Texas, and like a lot of days, 104, 105 on the thermometer. Been trying to avoid going outside as much as possible. The Kriv Bekna. I remember that name. I really need to, again, I'm going to go into the, I wonder if I should cover just the Eldritch Horror elements in general in this video on the Mothman Cult, and include the ones that you find in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 as well. Because, I mean, there's definitely seems to be some sort of relation between these things. Nice for you that it hasn't been as hot there. If I didn't have family living in Texas, I probably would not live here, specifically because of the weather. I mean, like, I don't know what was going on in the 19th century when people got here and they're like, oh, 104 degrees? Yes, I want to live here without air conditioning. Please make that happen. It's just insanity to me. Like, granted, your crops are much less likely to die from frost, but I don't know. This does not seem like a place to live. And it's not always like this. We do have some summers where it gets up to 100 degrees like 10 times in the entire summer, but this is not one of those summers. I was looking at the forecast the other day. It was like 107, 108 for the entire week forecast, and it was just, oh. Oh, yeah. I remember this little area. It has been a while since I did the Wastelanders campaign. Our main quest. Jeez. Mixing my game terms now at the moment. Point Lookout is a really interesting bit there. I love taking the mother load as a transportation vehicle. I think I'm probably going to limit my coverage of the Mothman cult specifically to the Mothman cult. So I will talk a little bit about the Eldritch Horror elements, but I feel like it would balloon to be too big. So what I'll probably do is I'll make a separate video covering all of the Eldritch Horror elements that we've seen so far, but that's going to be a different thing, because I feel like I could talk about the Mothman cult and their relation to Appalachia in more detail with a specific video about the faction, and then I will cover all of that stuff at a separate date when I've actually gotten more of a feel for it in the respective games. Because, I mean, like, last time I really played like a full-scale run of Fallout 3 with all the DLCs involved, it was like a decade ago at least. This is a private world. Yeah. Who do we... Oh! It's the Brotherhood of Zeal! Let's see. You guys hear that? I think it's the Sheep Squatch.
Yeah, nice try, civilian, but everyone knows that the Sheep Squatch is a bunch of fake bullshit.
Oh!
What the hell was that?
Barnaby, what do we do? Shit! Run for it!
Did this actually cause a Sheep Squatch to appear here or something? I've never had that one happen before. The first time I encountered that group, it was Brotherhood Barry that was leading them. And he is a moron. Even more so than the other two. Alright. Those guys are the Brotherhood of Zeal. They're a fake group of the Brotherhood of Steel that are piggybacking on their existence to basically rip people off. So they go around and they tell people, it's like, oh, citizen, the Brotherhood of Steel needs your help. Except for Barnaby calls it the Brotherhood of Zeal because he's too stupid to actually know the real name of the organization. So I talked about him in my Brotherhood of Steel part 2 video. One more thing I'll say real quick is I've noticed some more people asking about the Responders part 2 video. Because I did say at some point I will cover the Responders. And so I've been doing a little bit more thinking about that. And so my initial thought on the Responders Part 2 was that there's not enough content to really justify another lore video at this point. Because the only real content that has been added is a handful of people here within the White Spring. Let's go into the interior here. I mean, we got Rucker, we got Esme, and Wagoner, Sophie Wagoner. And that's basically it, along with, you know, a dozen unnamed guys that walk around. And then, Orlando, which is not part of the Responders. But I've had some second thoughts about that, because I think what I'm probably going to end up doing is I will make a part 2, and it's going to specifically be a part 2 because, and I'm going to basically mention that it's kind of like an interim piece of lore. Because I think that there is some stuff here that needs to be covered, but at the same time, it's going to be basically like, look at what this place was like before whatever big thing ends up happening. Because I think what we're going to end up seeing, and this is entirely speculation on my point, I could be completely wrong here, but I don't think that these are real Responders. And I think that what's happened here is that effectively what we have are people that want to do the right thing, and they've been enchanted by the Responders' ideology, but that what's really going on here is that this is the Enclave, and that the Enclave is using people's goodwill to accomplish their own goals, while also doing a few things here and there to basically appear as though they're the responders. Now, I've talked about this before a little bit in comments and videos and stuff like that, and basically people have talked about how, yeah, and I know this has been obvious to me as well, that Orlando is specifically serving the Enclave, but I would not be at all surprised to find out that the general group here is Enclave. So, yeah, what I want to do is cover this stuff, basically say, here's what's going on right now, and that effectively, at some point in the future, this is going to become much more obvious that this is basically just a front operation for the Enclave. Whether or not these people are... Whether or not Rucker, for example, is a member of the Enclave, or if she's just a public face, or if she's just a dupe, a patsy. Yeah, Orlando obviously is aware, but I don't know whether or not they've got their own kind of members of the responders as well. So they have a little bit more control even of the responders and people like Rucker. Now, Orlando's obviously able to exercise a certain amount of control with the control of the ultrasight power cells that they provide for the vertibirds. And so it's one of those things, too, where it's like they can basically tell the responders to an extent where you can and cannot take that vertibird because they're giving them the ultrasight cells or not. And are potentially even influencing people like Rucker to be like, yeah, you should go deal with that problem up in the pit. When in the background, they're like, okay, because the fanatics could be a legitimate threat to our operations here and or elsewhere. So, I don't know. I'm going to cover it, basically talk about the changes that they've made to the location, talk about the existing members here, talk about Orlando and the relationship between Orlando and these new responders. But basically, that's just going to be a part 2 of what is likely going to be at least a three-part series, which will then cover what'll happen later with the responders. So, yeah, a lot of people liked it. And believe me, I understand why people wanted the NPCs back in the game. Well, in the game to begin with, but at the same time, the apocalyptic feeling that there was in Fallout 76 when the game first launched is something that I have not found matched anywhere else. I mean, you were alone in the wasteland. It was a very, very different feeling. And while there are a lot of the NPCs that I like, it definitely has a different feel to the world now that they're all back in it, you know? So, the funny thing is, I made a post on that specific topic on the Fallout 76 subreddit, and people were like, oh, you probably work for Bethesda, don't you? And you don't want to have to do the work to add NPCs to the world. It's like, what? And so it's one of those things where you see that kind of stuff and you start to get an understanding of just crazy accusations people make on the internet. It's like, no, I don't work for Bethesda, but do you have a job available? Because, I mean, that sounds like an amazing job to be able to create lore in the Fallout universe. Anyway, though. All right, I think that basically covers what's going on. So again, Vault 95 will be next. After that, as soon as the Mothman Equinox event is available, I'll start doing those daily so I can record that lore. We can then move on to make the Point Pleasant and Mothman Cult videos. And along with that, at some point here, I don't know specifically when, I'm going to cover the responders in a part 2 video that's going to be basically intermediary, I don't know, in between, something like that, in between what it is that the responders were when the game launched and what they're going to eventually turn into, because this doesn't feel like a fully finished version of the responders. There's only 3 named responders. I think we can go check real quick. The census of the responders says there's only like 50 of them total, something like that, which obviously if you're going to really make an impact on the wasteland, you're going to need a lot more responders. Let's go see here. Rutgers Terminal. Damn it, I hate that bug. There we go. Census. 24 responders total. So yeah, again, they're going to need a lot more if they're going to really do anything. So yeah, I mean, when I first started playing Fallout 76 and people were saying, oh, there's no story here, when I was encountering the story, it's specifically why I started making lore videos. I mean, and that was the thing. It's like the world was something that had to be investigated in order to be understood properly. And I loved being able to take those little tiny bits of breadcrumbs of information and put them together and tell people the story that they were missing. So hopefully we'll get some more of that in the future. I'm definitely going to cover Starfield when it comes out. I'm hoping they're going to have some more lore like that when it went in Starfield. So Anyway, though, I think that'll do it for now. I'm hoping to get that 95 video out by this Friday. We'll see exactly it. Because vaults themselves, generally the story is much more contained, so it's easier to cover without fearing that I'm missing something that took place in a settlement 50 miles away. So anyway, though, I hope you all have a good week. Hopefully next Friday I won't have the same technical issues that meant that I didn't have any audio like I did this last Friday. So it was good to see y'all. I hope you have had a good weekend, and hope you all have a good week. Bye, all.